All right. Hey, Facebook. Doing my first Friday evening girl chat. So, welcome if you're joining, or thank you for watching the replay. Excuse me, the replay. And let me get going on Instagram. I'm going to try to do Instagram. I think this will be my second time going live on Instagram. So, we're going to see how this goes. I think I'm going to put it right here. All right, so I've got Instagram and I've got Facebook. All right, so if you see me looking in two places, so hey Instagram and hey Facebook. All right, so I know a while back I did a video on here, and I said a shift is coming, just to kind of let you know that my page would be having more than just hair videos. It'd be hair about being a single woman, and or hair videos about singleness and videos about my walk with God and what He's been teaching me. And so this is the first in a video. I am, for those of you that don't know me, I live in Austin, Texas, and I am a school administrator. So I am off for a summer break for a little while. So I said this would be a good time for me to start my video series and do some lives. So this would be the first one, and it's something that God taught me while I was single. That statement that how I named the video, He didn't ask you out. I'll tell you why I named it that. I'm going to tell the whole story and then what I learned from that as well. All right. So also in the description, I'm still all about natural hair. And so I still have a free roadmap to healthy hair that you can get. If you just join my email club, you get a free roadmap. I don't send out a whole lot of emails. I actually need to send more. I feel like I have been neglecting my email group as well. So I got to get on that as well. And then also, if you missed the first video where I explain why I'm expanding the page kind of like beyond just natural hair, it's also, I left a link on there as well too, if you want to go back and watch that video. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So the name of this video is He Didn't Ask You Out. And the reason why I named it is because that is what I felt like, or was impressed upon my heart from God in a situation about, let me see, maybe a couple years ago. This is 2019. So, maybe about 3 or 4 years ago then. Oh, wow. Okay. So maybe it was a little longer ago. So I'm going to tell the story of how that came to be and how God used that to actually help me heal through something. So when God told me that, I didn't realize at the time, but He was helping me heal from thinking that I have to prove myself as a single woman in order to be seen or be pursued or to have a guy have interest in me. And I was in that frame of mind of thinking, because there were a lot of women around me that were engaged, getting married, and I'm still single. And so I'm thinking, do I have to prove myself? And maybe I should have did this, should have did that. And I'm sure there are other single women that can probably attest to what I was going through. And so God helped me with that. So what happened was, it was about, I think about now, it was like 4 years ago, I guess. I had met a guy completely professionally. We came together because of a professional reason. Those details are not important, so that's why I'm not going into like how we met and what was the profession or any of that. And we met, and I could tell that, at least I thought, or I could tell he was interested in me, and I was interested in him. And so we had a really good conversation, and I felt like there was kind of flirtation going on whenever we met, or was in the same meetings and stuff like that. However, since it was platonic and it had to do with, a professional situation, there was a time where we were not going to be in each other's circles anymore. Like once we were done with this project, then we weren't going to be working together or anything anymore, right? So we're done with the project, the situation. So afterwards, when we met the last time and we weren't going to meet anymore, later, like a couple of weeks later after that, I remember I was just I had a lot of anxiety. I was just giving myself a lot of anxiety because I kept thinking, oh, well, I should have said this, and maybe I should have wore this dress, and I should have laughed at his jokes more. And I was just going over in my head of like all the things that I did wrong as to why he didn't really initiate anything. And so I was just really just going around, and it's because I was also heeding some bad advice. I was heeding advice where people were like, well, you got to put yourself out there, and you know, you got to do this and you got to do that. And and why I say it was bad advice is because the people were telling me these things didn't do those things for them to meet their husband. So it's like, why are you telling me these things? Right. So, let me closing some notifications here. So that's what that was. And so I was just laying in bed and I was like, I should have laughed at his jokes more. I should have wore this dress. I should have said this. I should have said that. I mean, it's just overthinking, which is what we as females seem to do a lot. At least I know I'm one of those that overthinking. And it's like I was really in this anxiety and stuff. And I feel like God impressed on my heart and just said, he didn't ask you out. And right after he said that, it's like I stopped all the thoughts stopped running through my head. I calmed down and I was like, you know what, God, like, you're right. Like, if he was really interested, like I thought he was, then he would have asked me out. He would have did more than just flirt a little bit. It would have turned into, can I call you? Do you want to go get coffee? It would have turned into something else. And so just instantly I had this calm come over me. And so I knew that was from God. Like he was saying, like, my daughter, you need to just calm down and like, get it together. And so as I kept thinking about that situation, and even here it is years later, I still think about it, I realized that was God helping me heal from feeling like I had to prove myself. And I've actually come to realize that that's actually a red flag in a relationship. If you're dating or if you're meeting a new friend, a new male friend, or anybody, and you feel like you have to prove yourself, then that can be a red flag because they should already see your worthiness and see your greatness and see your character, right? You shouldn't have to prove to anybody that you should get asked out or prove to anybody that you are worth being a friend to or you are worth doing this. You shouldn't have to prove that. It should already be in who you are and they should already be able to see that. And so by God telling me that night, that actually helped me start to see that as well. And then there's other things I started to kind of see as I was dating. And so I realized that my friends, when I started talking to my friends that are married and asking them, well, how'd you meet your husband? And what happened? And well, that it was nothing, I noticed it was nothing that they specifically did. It was like, well, he asked me here, or he told me he thought I was pretty and said, could he take me out on a date? It was the guy that initiated the whole thing. And they never once was like, well, because I laughed at his joke this way, then he must have, he really liked me. So of course they reciprocated and there's a relationship going back and forth, but it was the husband who they're married to now that made the first move for them. And I'll end up here freaking out that I didn't do something right because this guy didn't make a first move. And it was kind of humbling because then you realize, well, if he didn't ask me out, then he wasn't interested, right? And that doesn't mean that I'm not interesting. It just means he was not interested in me, and that's okay. And you'll get to a point in your singleness where you're like, that's okay, because I only need one guy that's actually gonna like me and be interested in me. So that was a big turning point for me and going toward being content and being single. That was a big turning point for me right there. And I feel like, and God definitely was the leader of that because he definitely calmed my thoughts that night because I was just all over the place. And I look back now and kind of laugh at certain things and I'm like, yeah, like, okay. Like that would have really made him ask me out on a date. So, but I've also learned that's a red flag. If you feel like you got to prove yourself, then you're probably not with the right person. And that's in friendships as well. Like people should already see your worth and your character and want to be with you. Another red flag that I do want to mention as well, because I'm in some single Christian groups with women, and a lot of women ask a lot of questions, and they'll pose a scenario, and then they'll say, "Well, I'm confused," or "He's confusing me," or "I'm so confused." That's probably confused, and I'm just speaking from experience of friends that are married. none of them ever said they were confused about how their husband felt about them when they were dating or where their husband wanted to take the relationship. They were never in any kind of like confusion going on. So that's another thing. Like if you're starting to feel confused and you're like, well, if I just prove that I'm this, it's probably not the right situation. You're going to end up draining yourself empty when he's still full and not really doing a whole lot going on. So those were the two main things. And also after God told me that, I started looking at relationships in the Bible, right? And started looking at women that got married. And of course, there's no one in there that pursued a guy or went after a guy. People like to say Ruth did, but when you really read the story of Ruth, Boaz actually recognized her first, and he inquired about her and was like, who is this young lady in my field? And even took it so far as to protect her and told her, look, you stay with my women right here when you're gleaning, and I'll make sure none of the men mess with you. So he had already noticed her. So there was already something there. And then he was the family redeemer. So that was a different time that we lived in. So I don't really see her at the end of the story when she's at his feet. I don't see that as pursuing, like her going after him, because he was the family redeemer, if that makes sense. I love the story of Ruth, so I have read it multiple times. So some of the passages you might want to read that actually helped me was in Ruth in 2:2. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick without going off live. Hopefully I can do this. And I hope I'm doing my Instagram correct. I'm trying to do two things at one time. All right. All right, should have had this pulled up before I got on, y'all. Sorry about that. All right, so like in Ruth, in 2:2, that's when, she's talking to Naomi about going to glean in the fields, and she wasn't even looking for favor romantically from Boaz. She was talking to Naomi and was like, well, I hope I find favor in his eyes, because she wanted to just be able to get some grain so that she could come back and take care of her and Naomi. Like that was her focus. It was kind of, she was doing her thing to take care of she and Naomi at the time. I moved my Instagram one over. All right. And then in 8, Ruth chapter 2, we're still in chapter 2, and we're in verses 8 through 12. That's when Boaz notices her, and then he starts to be protective of her and tells her, well, you stay right here where my women are, you glean with them, and I'll make sure the young men I've commanded them not to, mess with you, not to touch you or anything, and you can go over here and have a drink and you can rest and all of that stuff. And he even told her what had been reported to him, and it was about her character, how she was taking care of her mother-in-law and all that stuff. So he was noticing things without her having to put herself out there, so to speak, which is what a lot of us are told as single women, right? She was just, I got to take care of my mother-in-law. I got to get this done. And so he was already noticing things about her character and noticing who she was without her even having to, she didn't tell him herself that she was taking care of her mother-in-law. She just, I've got to go glean the fields, And it comes up again in chapter 3 when she does go to him at the threshing floor, and she is at his feet. So it's in we're in Ruth 3, chapter 3, verse 11, and she asked him to kind of like to cover her because he is the family redeemer. He talks about her character again, and he says for her to not fear, and I will do all that you request, for all the people of my town know that you are a virtuous woman, or you could say a woman of great character, or however you want to say that, right? So he was already noticing her when she was just trying to take care of her mother-in-law. And I know as a single woman, you get tired of hearing that, like, just do you, but that's really it. Like, just do you and be who you are and let yourself shine through, because people are going to take notice. And that's not just in relationship. That's even in work and jobs as well. Right? People are going to take notice if you just work on being who you are and what you need to do. And that's what Ruth was doing as well. So I started looking at some biblical verses. I looked at Ruth, and right now I've been looking at Rebecca because I really like her story, because she was, and her and Isaac were totally strangers, right? It was Abraham that sent his servant to find a wife for his son Isaac. And so I've been reading that as well. And it's kind of the same thing, except it's almost the opposite. Like the servant prayed, a young woman comes out and gives me water and also gives water to my camels, then kind of like let her be the one. And before he even finished playing, the Bible says before he even finished it, here comes Rebecca out. And sure enough, he asked for water and she offers it to him. And she's like, I'll give water to your camels too, sir. So still, again, it was kind of like he was looking for a woman of character that was servant, that was nice, that was willing to be hospitable, right? And but how it kind of turns around is that the servant starts telling the whole story to her and her family and starts talking about Isaac and about his master and all of that stuff. And then she's actually given a choice. Like after the servant has been there for a while, I don't know how many days, I'm gonna have to read it again. Then the family is like, well, do you want to go with this man? And then she's like, yeah, I'll go. So I'm like, she's willing to, after hearing about him. So again, she hadn't seen Isaac. She hadn't done anything to like prove herself or whatever or anything like that. She heard about him and was like, yes, I'll go. And then they meet each other and then they're married, right? I know times were definitely different, totally different down then than now. But I will say the similarities is in the friends that I have that are married, and even my mom, when they talk about when they were dating and when their husbands were courting them and dating them, um, they weren't having to prove themselves. It was like, oh, he made sure that I knew that he liked me and he wanted to be with me and he thought that I was the one. So I know how that feels as a single woman. You're just kind of like, when is that ever going to happen, right? Like people say that, but all I can say is that it will, and it will in God's timing. And you won't have to go out of your way to prove your worth or prove yourself to somebody. And so I am so thankful that God told me that night when I was overthinking the situation, and God was just like, He didn't ask you out. Like if He had wanted to be with you, He would ask you out. Like, what are you going over all this stuff in your head for? Because it led me down this whole road to like read more about Ruth and read more about Rebecca, and it just put me on the road to be more content with where I am. And so that's why I wanted to share that because it's been, when God told me that, it was like 4 years ago, and here it is, and it's still on me, and it's still in my mind, it's still in my heart, and I still know how He's healing me through that of not having to like prove myself to somebody. So um, I also wrote down Esther, but I don't have any chapters and verses, but I love the story of Esther. So that's another story you might want to also read. I love that story as well. And I'm still reading about Rebecca again to kind of like glean some more things from that as well. So that's all I have for our chat tonight on Friday. I will do another chat because I also had I think we've all experienced where you thought God told you someone was your husband. I had that. I had that too, and I think I'm gonna share that story because there's a lesson in there. There were things that God taught me through that I'm like, I'm so glad that happened because now I've learned some other things as well. Um, so again, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching the replay. If you are watching the replay, those of you on Instagram, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching the replay. If you're on Facebook, in my description box, I do have a freebie for you. You can sign up on my email club and get a free healthy hair roadmap because this page is still about natural hair too. It's just also going to expand into about being single and how God is leading me through things. So you can sign up for a free healthy hair roadmap on my email list. And if you want to watch the first video I did about the changes to this page, then I linked that as well. Instagram, I'm not really sure yet. This is my first time going live on Instagram in a long time, so I'm not sure how to put things on there. I think there's a way I can pin stuff. I'll figure it out next time so I can give y'all the same stuff that I've got over on Facebook. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this chat. I'll be back next Friday and I'll see what our topic is. I'll try to get the topic out on Wednesday so you'll kind of know what I'm gonna be talking about on Fridays, and we'll see how that goes. So thank you for watching, and thank you for watching the replay. And as always, share, like, comment, share, like, comment. That would be great. Ask any questions in the comments. I will come back and type in answers or respond to any of your questions and comments you have in there. All right. So I hope y'all have a very good Friday evening. I'm fixing to go enjoy me some pizza. It's my favorite thing to do on Friday. It's like my Friday dinner. So have a great Friday, and I will see y'all next week. Thank you so much for watching. All right. And live.